Greetings and welcome to another wee dram in our Classic Malts adventure. Hello, Rickus.
Hello, dear.
How the fuck are you?
Splendiferous.
Nice.
I always wanted to, if I ever opened up a sandwich shop, I'd call it How the Focaccia.
Oh, I like that. That'd be the kind of place I'd buy a sandwich. And I'm not one that buys sandwiches often.
Not really, no.
I make a mean sandwich, but I rarely buy a sandwich. If I'm buying food, I'm usually buying food that's too hard to cook. Like Chinese or Thai. That's a lot of fucking effort.
They're some of the easiest.
You got to have a whole bunch of stuff I don't have.
Yeah, it's the method is
I'm a man without
the
a
method
wok.
is simple, but fucking the amount of shit that you need.
Yeah.
It's rather extensive.
Yeah. So
Just
I buy that shit.
Kind of reminded me of an incident that I had at the supermarket the other day, actually. When you shop and you put all your shit on the conveyor belt, like say you're shopping at Aldi because it's a fucking long conveyor belt and they got the grocery dividers.
And they lack a self-serve checkout.
Yeah. Do you put yours down before you're shopping or after you're shopping when you're done?
Why the fuck would you put it down before you're shopping? That's where the other person has fucking put theirs. Like, you know, you put your shopping down and then you put your fucking divider thingy afterwards. That's your responsibility. Where your shopping ends is your responsibility. Where someone else's shopping starts is their responsibility.
To clean up after yourself. And what does the first person at the counter do? They don't put one down before them. That's the most redundant maneuver ever.
That'd be fucking stupid.
It would be
I have
ridiculous.
no doubt that there are people that do it, right? But they fucking, you just take them out of the fucking set of data because they're fuckwits.
Yeah. Well, I had a passive-aggressive gentleman the other day at Aldi. If I see that no one's put down a divider, I'm kind of passive-aggressive as well. I'll put my shit uncomfortably close to their shit, so maybe the checkout person can't tell whose is whose. And I'll make a habit. I will put the divider down at the end of mine. And I had a dude look at me and then grab a divider and sort of slam it down forcefully and then look away with like a...
He's in the wrong there.
he was an A-grade,
What the fuck
fuckwit.
did he think that he was the one person in the line of people with shit on the conveyor belt that didn't need to put one down?
Yeah.
Like,
He just doesn't understand
someone
supermarket
else will
etiquette.
do it for me. Fuck you.
Yeah, piece of shit. Clean up after yourself.
That's
you fucking,
lazy.
Yeah.
And you know how I feel about lazy. If it's someone else, it pisses me off.
A fine line between laziness and efficiency.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And it's often muddled.
When I do it, I'm efficient.
Exactly. When some other cunt does it.
Why I order. But anyway, that's when I totally derailed that from the get-go.
Yeah. Well,
Fucking
that's all
5 minutes in, we haven't even mentioned what we're here for.
Oh, well, what we're here to do, Rick, is fucking drink whiskey, particularly the whiskies in Diageo's Classic Malts set. And we're up to the fourth of those whiskies, and that is and I always say this wrong, and I'm going to do it again, the Oban, or as it's actually called.
Oban.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know, Oban sounds... Well, it's the way that I've always said it.
It looks
so
the way that's...
I'm a creature of habit. When I say something a bunch of times wrong, I tend to keep saying it wrong.
Like Duars.
Yep. Yep. And I've been pulled up on that fucking several times too.
I'm not surprised.
I remember back in my days when I was a bartender, and a young bartender at that, I fucking, went, oh, what would you like? Someone said whiskey. Oh, well, the house whiskey is Duars. And the father of the publican that I worked for was standing at the bar. He's going, fucking Duars? It's fucking Dewars. Well, hang on. What did you call frigate rum Frigati?
sometimes.
No, it's obviously frigate. He's like, well, that's obviously fucking doers. Oh, all right, maybe sometimes I pronounce things fancy because I read them fancy. That's all. It's about those words that you read all the time, but you don't hear people say. And fuck,
Yeah.
How many times do you order a doers? Not many.
I've ordered the antithesis of doers.
There you go. There's a bunch of those words that have fucked me up over the years.
Yeah. Oh, I will concur.
Like, I always thought it was noose, instead of nouse.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
Just, until I said it one day and someone went, what the fuck are you talking about? So, yeah, all right, fair enough. I actually but Google have a great feature these days where you can Google a word and hit the little speaker, or it might be a microphone, little icon, and Google speaks the word at you. I probably should have done that with Oban.
That's 50-50 on that though. Like Gaelic pronunciations are just fucked in general.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? All right, well, considering we've derailed this episode completely already with our stories and shenanigans, let's hear a little about Oban.
Well, the distillery lies on the Scottish west coast. Funnily enough, at the port of Oban. Oban's a Gaelic word that means little bay. But one anomaly about this distillery is that it's not actually named after the town. The town was built around the distillery 17 years after the distillery itself was established.
That is anomaly. It's not anonymous. It's anonymous. You're right. That's an anomaly.
It's also unusual in the fact that it's both a seaside distillery and an urban distillery.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of the town, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because they built the town around the fucking thing.
So, who was that? The Stevensons.
I think it was.
Built and operated by brothers John and Hugh, who also made boats, quarried slate, and, distillers.
Yeah, stonemasons. Visionary stonemasons.
Visionaries.
Fucking, because what was it?
Who was it? The Duke of Argyll or something?
Yeah, or Argyll or something like that. He offered low land rents to anyone that had built a house. And so those enterprising and uppity young lads went, well, what do you give us if we build a town? And good on them.
I can understand why, like being, what was it? Stonemasons, or what did I say?
Yeah, stonemasons.
They had a slate quarry. Quarried slate. Well, yeah, there's all the roofs of the town done, taken care of. In fact, Oban Distillery's roof is made of slate and it's detachable in order to move the machinery in and out.
Sick.
Originally, the distillery was built at the water's edge, but over time, as the town grew, the harbour walls were built, and now it's 208 steps from the sea. It has only 2 pot stills, which makes it one of the smallest in Scotland, and its total size is just larger than an acre.
Yeah, and it's not a real large town either. It's a pretty small town.
Actually, I didn't look into the population. Do you have any idea?
No, I don't have an actual population number, but it's small. But it's got a fucking long history. It's been inhabited since at least the Mesolithic times, some 7,000 years ago.
Yeah, I read that. Actually, it's in the whiskey guide. I wasn't expecting to pull this out so early, but where are we? Okay, I'll read this paragraph. The stillhouse was rebuilt in the late 1960s, but like the rest of the distillery, it remains a pretty cramped affair. There had been much expansion in the 1880s with the building of warehouses, though space was at a premium. The distillery backs into a cliff face, and it was while an old cave was being excavated for the construction of a warehouse that the remains of 8 prehistoric people, 4 adults and 4 children, were discovered. The immediate area of the west coast has long been known to archaeologists as one of outstanding importance in the piecing together of the history of people who first populated the northern British Isles.
There you go. And it's so obviously a lot of history there, old history, so it's an important place. But on a more modern note, it was actually the landfall of the first transatlantic telephone cable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the cable is called the TAT-1 or TAT-1. I don't know what the parlance is. I'm just reading it. I haven't heard it spoken. But it carried the infamous hotline that connected the Pentagon and the Kremlin.
Oh, fair dinkum.
Yeah, so it was never an actual phone line. It was a teletype line, and then it got switched to a fax, and I think it was 1986 or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, so fucking Oban, tiny town, built around a distillery, 7,000 years of history.
Unreal.
Probably the only distillery that could sit there and say, I'm built on a 7,000-year-old prehistoric meeting place site.
That's fucking awesome.
Fucking A. Ain't history grand?
Wish I knew more about it.
Well, nothing's stopping you.
No, there isn't. Isn't really. Except for my own patheticness.
Harsh.
Fair. There's only 7 people employed at the distillery. And on their website, one quote that I pulled, I just thought it was fantastic. Every drop of whiskey is made by these 14 hands.
Oh, nice. That's poetic.
It is.
So, we kind of ripped on Diageo for including 2 Highland representatives and differentiating one by calling it a West Highland style whiskey. There's a little bit of cred to that, though. They call it a West Highland style because it falls between the dry, smoky style of the Scottish Highlands and the lighter, sweeter malts of the Highlands, apparently. We'll be the judge of that, and rest assured, we will sure as fuck let you know what we think. The Stevensons, I love this, voyeurs to some extent, lived in a building contiguous with the distillery, and they actually had a peephole fitted to the door in their sitting room so that they could watch over progress in the factory.
Wow. I've known people like that. They're not my favourite people.
No, voyeurs. Oban also use one of the few traditional mash tuns left in Scotland. That they do only 6 mashes per week. They could do more, but they follow a traditional process which limits the supply of whiskey Oban can produce. There are only 4 rooms. There are only 4 rooms used to make whiskey in the Oban distillery. They're the mill room, the mash house, the tun room, and the still house. And this method of making whiskey at Oban has not changed since 1794.
Yeah, fuck, eh? And the joint started as a brewery.
Yeah, I read that.
Built as a brewery first, probably to turn it into a distillery. Clever fuckers. It was one of the largest and best equipped in Scotland at the time, but now it's one of the smallest.
Yeah.
Fucking how technology gets away from you, I suppose. Its first official license dated 1797, expired the following year. A second application for a license was made in 1818.
Oh, really?
There's no record of whether the distillery actually suspended operations or if they just fucking did it illegally, because everyone else was doing it illegally at the time. But yeah, so the Stevenson family retained control of the distillery till 1866, when it was sold to Peter Cumsty, or Cumsty. Either which way, an unfortunate name.
An unfortunate name, yeah.
But 83, he sold it to John Walter Higgin, who retained it till 1898.
Wasn't he he suffered, 1898, he suffered at the hands of the Patterson brothers.
Well, he actually kind of got out of it okay, because he sold it in 1898. to Alexander Edward, who was the owner of Altmore and Craigellachie. Craigellachie? I don't know.
Craigellachie, I'd say.
You go. But because he also had, he combined it all into Oban and Altmore Glenlivet Company.
Right.
And because Altmore which is a Speyside distillery from the Glenlivet region, had the right to append the Glenlivet name to its distillery. Now, there was a whole controversial court case that went on at this time.
Fine old Glenlivet.
Yeah,
it was
exactly right.
Pseudonym for quality, basically.
So he had the right to append the name because that was the settlement that they had, but they had nothing to do with the more famous distillery that went by the two-word name of Glenlivet, which on the bottles it's one word again now. So who knows? It's
but they've got that capitalization, don't they?
Yeah, just no space between it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was two words combined back into one. But so Higgins' timing proved fortuitous. That's a word I really like to say, even though it's wrong. It's probably
it's got the word tit in it.
I think I used to pronounce it fortuitous, even though it's not spelt that way in any way, shape, or form. But it's
Syllable rich.
and even more fun to say. But because it was,
I used to say gratuitous. Is that a word, or is it gratuitous?
I think it's gratuitous.
Yeah.
But gratuitous is also fun to say. Any word with the word tit in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love to get my lips around.
Who doesn't like small birds? But yeah, so it was December of 1898 that the Patterson crash began. So Higgins sold it just before the Patterson crash. So Alexander Edward kind of got fucked on.
He kind of got shafted.
Because at that time...
Barely a spit shine on that.
Because before, like historically, Oban had been one of, I think, maybe the only classic malt that had started life as a single malt. And it was in the 1890s, they began to sell bulk loads of mature whiskey to the blending firm of Patterson's of Leith. So they got super fucked over. They sold a whole bunch of their mature stock to Patterson's. And, obviously the Patterson crash we've covered in previous episodes. So it kind of fucked them.
Gnarly.
But Edwards ran the combined company, but its shareholders included John Dewar, John Dewar and Sons, James Buchanan and Company, and White Horse Distillers. So in 23, Dewar bought out the other shareholders and became part of Distillers Company in 1925. And from 1930, Oban was run as part of Scotch Malt Distillers. Distillers Company morphed into United Distillers in 1986, which became part of the newly organised Diageo in 1997. So Oban was OG Diageo.
They are.
So they absolutely have their right, and to be the only expression of West Highland style. But they've earned their right to be one of the six classic malts by being OG Diageo.
Probably one of the few true placeholders.
Yeah, exactly
in
right.
the lineup.
Apart from my favourite, but we'll get to that.
Oh, might fucking get to the whiskey.
Fucking A. Yeah, it's the second smallest Diageo distillery in Scotland. And they've got 30 odd. And only Royal Lochnagar.
Yeah,
That's
Lochnagar, I would say.
Yeah.
But
And you'd probably be right because you usually are and I'm wrong. But that's the only one that's smaller. So that's nice
sweet
on the nose.
honey, sort of mid to high end.
And there's a touch of peat there. It's only tiny, tiny, tiny and faint. In fact, I might be imagining it because of the line in front of me that says the distillery uses a combination of both peated and unpeated malt, both of which come from Diageo's central malting facility. Okay. So there might not be any. I might be imagining the peat.
Yeah, it doesn't strike me as having any more peat than the Cragganmore did.
But that's supposed to be the defining style of the West Highlands style, isn't it? That it's got some of the salty, peaty, maritime characteristics of the islands and yet the floral characteristics of the Highlands as well. But
Is it trying to marry the best parts of the two? in a way?
And if they did it successfully, then that would be a fucking great malt. Because I love peat. And I love floral. But I love peat more.
Mm-hmm.
Just fuck it. Just give me Isla every day. So this has got a bit of a meatiness to it as well, doesn't it?
Sort of. I wouldn't say it's anywhere as meaty as the Cragganmore, though.
Not quite, but there's a
Because it's
hint
all,
of sulphur.
that was all. Cragganmore was very bottom
All bottom
and
end.
mid on the nose.
Whereas there's a bit more...
This is
more
a bit
balance.
higher,
Yep.
yeah. Blending those two together could result in something kind of cool.
This is a little bit more fulfilling for me on the nose. There's a little bit more to it. There's...
Tiny
there-
little bit of sort of orange peel, maybe.
Yeah, there's those kind of typical floral notes on the nose with a bit of, a hint of sulphur, a hint of that bottom end.
It's nice, sort of little brown sugary, honey-ish, floral.
Yeah, it's you're right, it's citrus blossoms again.
Bit of complexity, that's quite metamorphic on the tongue.
There's a little
The
strock
whole
match.
spectrum of flavours.
Oh wow, yeah. There's a lot going on in that first sip, isn't there?
There's actually in contrast to the nose, there is a lot of more body on the palate than there is on the nose.
It's quite tanniny, isn't it?
And then you kind of get left with a sour bitterness on the finish,
A little bit of tar.
on the roof of the mouth.
There's a little bit of that, maritime kind of salty
It's
spray
funny. I
to
was
it.
going to say there's like a salty tea quality to it as well. Salty black tea.
It's got a touch
Where
of
someone's did you have a fucking school camp and some motherfucker had switched the sugar for salt. You ended up putting a fuckload of salt on your cornflakes.
Look, I've done it. It wasn't anyone else's fault. I've just fucking... I've just fucked up.
You've just done fucked up.
Yeah, I've just done fucked up.
Yeah. So I was thinking if I had have used that same salt and put a teaspoon in a cup of tea, getting like a hint of what I imagine that would be like.
Reminds me of kind of... There's something slightly Hebridean about it. You know, those Hebridean Isle whiskies they're not quite... Because they're not peated, so they're not Isla whiskies, but there's that maritime quality to them. But it's also... The wood comes through really nicely.
This does have actually that saltiness. The more I think on it, is the more I'm feeling like there's just after you've been for a swim at the beach, and you've fucking swallowed some of the salt water, or it's gotten in your mouth. I feel like the same feeling on the roof of my mouth.
Yeah, she's well balanced.
It's a bit too far in the high end for me to agree wholeheartedly on that.
It's got a interesting mouthfeel. There's There's a nice robe on it. It's not a particularly viscous dram, but it does have this. It is complex.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Quite smooth, though.
Yeah, every one of these classic malts has been smooth.
Yeah. And that sort of salt and pepper. It's like white pepper that just gives way to salt on the roof of my mouth. The more I think on that, man, the more salty it gets.
And the toast from the cask comes through. That char and the toasting of the oak. The finish is mid-range. It's not super long. It fades quite quickly, but it's pleasant after it fades, just leaving a hint of burnt sweetness on the tongue. So the Oban also use worm tubs, as we discussed last episode with the Cragganmore. There's only 14 distilleries in Scotland that still use them. Balmanack, Benrinnes, Cragganmore, Dalwhinnie, Edredor, Gleneglin, Glenkinchie, Old Pulteney, Speyburn, Royal Lochnagar, Talisker and Mortlach. Springbank uses them, but only for the wash still.
Right.
So there you go.
Well, a bit on that, I read that Oban's make is light rather than heavy. I'm not sure how they quantify that. But they say that means a lot of copper contact is needed, which can be tricky in a small still worm tub site. So their solution is to run the worms hot, which extends the amount of copper available, and also to open the doors of the stills after distillation to allow oxygen to rejuvenate the copper.
Yeah, right. Apparently their worm tubs also have another unique feature. They contain two worms nested within each other. So it says here that the spirit emerging from the Lin arm is divided into two worms. The reason for doing so is to further slow down the condensation and maximize contact with the copper tubing. It says here it's not clear when the Oban began using two nested worms, or if it's always been the case at the distillery. Locals claim the practice goes back to the 19th century.
Okay. That sounds I'll see if I can dig up a photo of that. Pretty curious to see how that works.
A worm in a worm, as it were.
Carnivorous.
Meaty.
You haven't ever eaten a worm before, have you?
The only worms I've eaten have been at the bottom of mezcal bottles.
Okay. I thought you were going to say on ex-girlfriend's ass or something.
Wow. You've got low expectations of me, don't you?
That fucking happens to the best of us, dude.
It's an interesting malt, this one. I'm not quite sure what to make of it.
It's quite complex. I'm not really sure what else to say about it.
No.
It's got quite a lot going on. It's almost different every time.
It is. Like, I haven't formed a concrete opinion of it yet.
Like, for instance, on the finish of that one now, I'm getting a nice bit of sort of malt and oak. Nice rounded, nice bit of sweetness.
I think I like it. I don't not like it.
It makes sense that why I've gotten halfway through the bottle and couldn't say anything about it beforehand. It's such a chameleon.
It's not an exceptional malt. I think it
probably took me that long it'd probably take me 3 bottles to actually formulate a solid opinion.
Yeah.
It's just,
inoffensive. It's certainly not something I'm not going to tell anyone not to drink it. I think, it's, as I said, it's actually sold its whiskey as a single malt longer than just about any Scottish distillery. But for the first half of the 20th century, its whiskey often appeared in blends from Dewar, Buchanan, and Whitehorse. So it's still used in small quantities by the blenders in some of the company's blended whiskies, but it is a single malt, so it's not overly difficult to get your hands on. I would say the same as the other malts we've tried in this series. They deserve a place on your shelf, not just because they're Diageo malts, just because they're whiskies that you can give to someone to show them an expression of the style. Not that...
Yeah, that's the one thing so far. They are all quite distinct from each other.
And I think this is, you could say, like, this is distinct from a Speyside, even though it is absolutely in Speyside. Speyside's in the Highland. It's a Highland malt. Don't get us wrong. It is a Highland malt. It's a Highland malt with a little bit more going on. It reminds me a little bit of the Ben Romac, which was, it's a little bit like that slightly, the 15, the slightly peated, the very lightly peated Spey. It's indicative of a style with a twist. Whether you, I don't know if anyone will rave about it. I'm not going to rave about it, but
I can't imagine this being too many people's favourite.
No, but it is different. It's different, and therefore you should try it. I mean, you should try everything, right?
Did you know that the Stevensons brought llamas
Llamas.
to Oban?
Comment c'est llama?
Comment c'est llama? Llama?
They
Llama.
brought llamas.
Yeah. Oh, shit, you know.
Why?
Following his bankruptcy in 1820, Thomas Stevenson stayed on in his house at number 1 George Street, which was now owned by his son John, who lived in Argentina. Thomas was now described as a farmer, and in 1830 he was one of the first people in Britain to import alpacas from Peru.
Wow.
His interest in the animals probably stemmed from the time he spent in South America.
Yeah.
So initially 12 alpacas were shipped, but only 4 survived the journey, poor bastards,
Fuck.
from Peru to Liverpool. 2 were kept by the ship's captain, and the others, 1 male and 1 female, arrived in Oban. They were kept with Thomas's Highland cattle in the field beside his house at the junction of Stevenson Street and George Street, close to where the Caledonian Hotel now stands. He'd never used the wool commercially apart from making it into stockings for his family, although he did exhibit it at the Stirling Cattle Show in 1883. Sorry, I'll say that again because I butchered heaps of it. He never used the wool commercially, but he did make stockings into his... He never used the wool commercially, but he did make some into stockings for his family, and he did exhibit it at the Stirling Cattle Show in 1833. In 1834, 12 llamas were sent from Peru, but again, only 2 arrived in Oban. But they bred successfully, and the animals were sold to other farmers in the area. Later, Avicuna, I think that's how you pronounce it, or Avicuna, was imported, which is just another type of... It's in that family, llama, alpaca. Was imported and was bred with one of the llamas, but sadly was killed by a local boy just before it gave birth.
Oh, fuck.
I would have given that local boy a hiding. Another 8 llamas and 8
I would have bred
alpacas.
him with the llama.
I would have buried him with the llama. Another 8 llamas and 8 alpacas were sent across, but all died on the sea voyage. Over 11 llamas were born in Oban, but there's no record of what happened to them.
Jesus.
I mean, a few people probably didn't sleep hungry.
No.
Or cold.
Well, there's good heating. I wonder if there's good eating on a llama.
It couldn't be too far off lamb.
I don't know, dude. What are you going to give it?
Yeah, this isn't ticking too many boxes for me. But it's... See, now that's had a bit of time to air, Getting some nice malty sweetness coming through, which is, it's really inviting on the nose. Sort of coming through on that palate, but there's that sort of the bitterness that it's got that Highland twang that I'm not much of a fan of. Trying not to be biased. This is a fucking 7 for days.
It is a 7 for days. You're right.
7-1 or 7-2 is my feel.
Look, I was thinking 7-2 as well.
Yeah, I'll stick with 7-1 just because I fucking hate that Highland twang. What have we got here?
7-2 was where I started. It's where I'm going to finish.
Yeah. The Rev. Absolutely all over the place. The cast selection sits very uncomfortably with the malt. I look forward to the resumption of normality to this great but ill-served distillery. 79.
Wow.
I love that though. Absolutely all over the place that's pretty well akin to how
it
feel.
is a bit of a confused malt. And if it had settled somewhere, it just kind of fails to achieve what it was to achieve, I think. But in saying that, try it. See what you think. And feel free to, leave a comment in the comments section of wherever you choose to view or listen to this wee creative outlet, and tell us what you think, whether you agree with us, disagree with us, or
whether you want to punch on behind the sheds after the show.
Which would probably be a little unreasonable, but hey, feel free to express yourself however you like.
Some people are passionate.
Exactly. And we
I'm not going to hold that
passion.
against you.
No,
I'm just going to fucking beat your face in.
Yeah, well, I'll watch. Probably take bets.
And then we can laugh about it and have a dram afterwards.
Man, because it's all about drinking whiskey. So, until next time.
Before we depart, just want to say, check out the website, liveinthedram.com.au. You'll find links to our social media and YouTube. And do us a favour, tell a mate if you're enjoying it, and leave a review on your favourite podcast app. Till next time, we've got 2 more to go. And I'm kind of not looking forward to one of them and really looking forward to the other.
Amen. It's going to be a great way to finish our wee ride. But until next time.
Sláinte, good people.
Sláinte.